good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Microsoft Ignite. Did everybody have a good day 1? Have you had some good sessions so far? Yeah? Hope so? So good. Is anyone else tired? I'm already tired. It's only Tuesday, and I already feel like I've done so much. We've got so much stuff to continue to do, which is really exciting. My name is Christina Warren, and I'm a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft, and that's my Twitter handle. Don't feel obligated to follow me. I tweet a lot about pop culture, so you are warned, and it's okay if you don't want to follow me, but I just put that out there. And today we're going to be talking about how to get started with Azure networking. And you know, Azure provides compute, networking, and storage solutions for the cloud, but all of this stuff can be kind of hard to get a grasp on. I mean, it's literally one of my jobs to stay up to date with everything, and all of this can be sort of overwhelming for me. And so the point of this session is to basically go over the essential concepts of Azure networking so that you can get up and running. And I just want to put this up. We will have this slide at the end of the presentation, but this is where the resources will be. So if you want to download this presentation, I don't really have any code for this section, but there is a little exercise you can go through. These are the links, and you can access any of the other event resources as well. But as I said, I will have this slide up at the end, but I just wanted to put this up there. And the short link that's on the bottom of these screens will also take you directly to the session information. All right, so I just kind of want to give like a little overview of what Azure looks like. And this is kind of our massive map of Azure services. And all this stuff can really be pretty overwhelming, as I said. And what we're going to be focusing on in this session is all of the different things within the networking stack. So the virtual network, VPN gateways, ExpressRoute, a lot of stuff on load balancers, and so forth. So that's going to be our focus with this session. All right, so the first thing that we want to talk about is what is an Azure network and how do you plan for it? Well, Azure offers a variety of networking capabilities that can be used together or separately. And that can be, you know, some connectivity services. So those are going to be things like, you know, VPNs to connect either resources together or to connect your Azure network with what you might be doing on-prem. We also have various application delivery and protection services and so on. But the first thing we're going to talk about is the Azure Virtual Network. And so this is going to basically let you create private networks in the cloud, and you have full control over the IP address, the DNS servers, the security rules, and the traffic flows. And basically, this is going to be, it's logically isolated within Azure. And if you've ever set up a network in Hyper-V or VMware or even, you know, another cloud provider, then this process will be pretty similar to you, or will be pretty familiar to you. This is a pretty similar process. And basically, the network is going to be segmented into one or more subnets, and you can use those subnets to be able to secure and better organize your resources. So the first thing we kind of want to talk about, and one of the big tips we talk about when setting up a network and setting up those resources, is the idea of naming. Now, every Azure resource has a name, but that name has to be unique within its scope. But that can differ for each resource type. So I could use the same name for different types of things, but within each specific type, I could only have one network called a certain thing and one network security group called a certain thing, but they could both have the same name. The name has to be, for virtual networks, has to be unique within its resource group, but you can duplicate that name across subscriptions or within other Azure regions. And one of the things we kind of talk about and the advice that I like to give is to come up with a consistent naming convention when you're getting started, because that's going to help make it much easier to manage your services as you're growing. And so that could be a prefix for a project. That could be, you know, a certain naming thing that you always want to use for a certain sort of a VNet or for, you know, a load balancer or for something else. But coming up with a consistent naming scheme in the beginning makes it a lot easier to manage things as you add more and more parts to your network. And all of these resources are going to be located within a region. And when we're talking about regions with Azure, we're talking about a data center that is in a certain geographic location. And so all resources are created in a region and in a subscription. Now, a resource can only be in a virtual network that is in the exact same region and the same subscription as that resource. So if you have a virtual machine or a container or something, that needs to be in the same resource as your networking components. But you can connect virtual networks together across subscriptions and across regions. So if you needed to have some components that live someplace else, you could just create another network and connect that to another resource. And when you think about what region you want to use, that can really kind of depend on what you are wanting to do. In general, it's a good idea to pick the location that's going to be closest to most of your users, but in some cases, certain features might not be available everywhere, and so those are things to think about. And right now, Azure is in 54 regions across 140 different countries, and we're opening more locations all the time. But right now, we have a really good footprint all over the world. And one of the things with regions as well is that they are geo-isolated and oftentimes have different governance policies set to those specific areas. So if you have certain compliance things that you need to work with, that's something to keep in mind too when you're picking what region you want. And then when it comes to subscriptions, you can have as many networks as you want within the subscription up to the limit. And the reason I didn't list the limit is because it can kind of vary depending on some parameters. The big thing you kind of need to know is that you have a lot of options. You can grow a really, really large network, and this isn't something that people should be concerned with running out of resources or not being able to build a big enough network. But even if that were the case, you could also, as I said, have multiple virtual networks per subscription and per region. You have multiple subnets, so you really do have a lot of options depending on how you're wanting to grow things. Now, one of the things I want to kind of call out is that in this fundamentals track that we're on right now, we have some upcoming sessions that are going to focus on things like keeping costs down. That's going to be tomorrow in the Chapin Theater, and that's a really great session to think about where you want to set things up and how you want to manage your resources, not just for networks, but for all parts of Azure so that you're not spending a lot of money. And the other thing would be, we have a session also tomorrow on governance also in the Chapin Theater, and that's really good if you need to think about if there are certain rules that you need to keep in check for your organization or certain rules that you are obligated to do based on where you're located. All right, so what I want to do now is I'm going to switch to our demo real quick. Okay.
In a little while, so I'm still trying to figure out my schedule. So
if I could get tech
Twitter
up here, something went wrong. Sorry, I was trying to switch my demo and show off the Azure portal, and now I don't have screens. Sorry. Is this? Right, here we go. Sorry about that. All right, so this is the Azure portal, and I just kind of wanted to show off where the different networking resources are. And I wanted to do this because the portal has changed its design very recently. It's now, I think, a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier on the eyes. And so where you can find all the different networking options, there's now this menu bar. It can either be docked or it can just come up whenever you need it. And I just want to go to create a resource. And now there is a networking section. And this is going to show me all of my different networking options. So I can create a virtual network, I can set up a load balancer, I can set up an application gateway or front door. And we're going to talk about a lot of these options. And there are other options as well. There are some appliances that we'll talk about a little bit later that can let you do more things and kind of bridge your on-prem world with what you're doing in Azure. So this is just where all the networking things live in the marketplace and within Azure. And we're going to be coming back to the portal a little bit later to show off some of the things that we can do. Okay, switch back. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about some of your connectivity options. And you can connect virtual networks to other virtual networks using virtual network peering, and you can also use this as a way to connect to your on-premises network. So if you want to be able to connect what you're doing on site with Azure, there are a number of different options, and the big one here would be the Azure VPN Gateway. And so when we talk about virtual network to virtual network peering, what we're talking about is the ability to seamlessly connect your virtual network to either connect two Azure virtual networks together or connect your on-prem network with what's happening in Azure. And once these are peered together, when you're peering to Azure networks, by all intents and purposes, Azure sees it as just one network, which is really great. And when you're peering traffic between two different Azure networks, all of that traffic is actually taking place within Microsoft's backbone. And so that's going to make it fast and secure. And this is just kind of going to show a little bit of what it looks like to do some of the peering. So here, I basically have two networks connected, and when the user is accessing my network, it just sees one network address. But in fact, this has actually been peered together. And one of the benefits here, regardless of if you're doing, like local or global peering, is that you're really having the opportunity to extend your offerings and have more robust control and even backups if something's to go wrong. So these are some of our options when we're thinking about like kind of hybrid VPN connections within Azure. We have kind of like a secure point-to-site connectivity. This is going to be fairly basic, which is just someone's going to your website, they're going to be hitting your server, and then we have secure site-to-site VPN connections, which is a way to connect your virtual network to what's happening on-prem, and then we have a private site-to-site connectivity, which in our case would be something called ExpressRoute, which is a way to have a private direct connection from your network to Azure. And so when we talk about site-to-site VPNs and using the Azure Virtual Network, and in this case, we're going to call it a VPN gateway, the idea here is that it's basically going to send encrypted traffic between Azure and whatever you're doing on-prem, but it's going to use the public internet. Now, as I said, you can also send traffic between different Azure networks over Microsoft's backend, and that's private and secure. So if you have multiple Azure networks, that's going to take place on that backend. But if you want to connect things that are happening on-prem with what's happening in the cloud, one of your options is to use a VPN gateway. And now, every virtual network can only have one VPN gateway, but you can have multiple connections to the same gateway, so you do still have a lot of options. Now, if going over the public internet is not something that you want to do, if maybe you have some compliance reasons or privacy concerns, or you need really, really fast and secure speeds or a lot of bandwidth, we do have an option called ExpressRoute. And what this basically does is it extends your on-premise network into the cloud, but it's going to be using a private connection that's facilitated by a third-party provider. And so you need to actually set up a contract with that provider, but we have a number of them in regions all over the world. And this is also going to let you establish a direct connection to not just Azure, but Office 365 and Dynamics as well. And this can be from any to any or point to point, or even a cross connection with how you set that up. So if you're needing something really robust and you need a private connection going on-prem to Azure, ExpressRoute is what you want to look at. And so when we think about what those differences are and why you would want to use one over the other, the big thing is that, as I said, ExpressRoute is going to be that direct private connection, and and the VPN gateway is going to have certain bandwidth caps. So it's going to be about a gigabit per second aggregate, which is actually really robust. And for most purposes, for most businesses, that's going to be enough. But if you need more than that, ExpressRoute, depending on what provider you're getting with and what sort of contract you sign, that can go all the way up to 10 gigabits per second. So it can actually be even more robust than that. Or it can actually be, it can handle a lot of traffic. Now, the pricing is going to vary depending on what service you choose, but in most cases, ExpressRoute is going to be more expensive, but it's a really good option, especially for people who might have certain compliance concerns or are just not comfortable using the public internet, or maybe the public internet coming out of their business isn't super reliable. The big thing here, though, is that you can actually use these two things together. And so you can configure a site-to-site VPN using ExpressRoute, and then it can have failover using a VPN gateway. And so you can actually integrate both of these together, which is really great. Now, the next thing I want to kind of talk about is the Azure CDN. And so our CDN is Azure CDN. It's a content delivery network, and what this is basically this is a way where you're able to cache or serve specific pieces of content to people when they hit your website without having to necessarily support a bunch of simultaneous connections. So it can be really, really good if people are constantly downloading really large, intensive files, or if you have a certain kind of static page that is really popular and you're concerned about being able to handle the traffic. And so we have a bunch of different CDN options that can basically, we will cache content strategically at locations all over the globe, which is great, which also means that it can be much faster sometimes for people to get content or download things from you no matter where they are. And there are some other options that we have too. There's dynamic site acceleration. You can set up CDN caching rules. There's HTTPS and custom domain support. You can filter for geolocation. There's options to file compression and diagnostic logs. And we have a number of different offerings here, including the Microsoft standard CDN. We also offer a standard CDN from Akamai, as well as one from Verizon, and then there's a premium option for Verizon too. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you a little demo about what the process is for connecting a CDN to Azure and or to one of your storage accounts. And sorry, 1 second. Okay, and I don't want to rely on our internet here, so I went ahead and I just did this demo in my hotel room a little bit earlier. So I'm just going to walk through this process. So before this started, I already had created just a blob storage account in Azure. So I have a storage account that I want to use as a CDN. I want to have this as a place where people can just come and download files. And so, wrong thing. Sorry about that. And so I've already created a storage account in Azure. And what I want to do is this storage account I've called it TWT demo, and I'm just going to click on the storage account. And what I want to do now is I want to create a CDN endpoint so that I can serve cached files, and I can also set up certain rules. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up that storage account, and I'm going to go in the settings panel, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the Azure CDN button, which is right here. I'm going to click on this section, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new endpoint. And if I had an existing endpoint, I could modify that. But I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this a name. And in this case, we're going to name this TWT Orlando because we are in Orlando. And then when it comes to my pricing tier, I could choose from a number of different options. And in fact, these are the different features that the different CDN options have. But in this case, so you could go, the standard or go to premium. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and select the standard Microsoft CDN. It's pretty good. And now I'm going to go ahead and give this endpoint a name, which I'm also going to name TWT Orlando, but I could name this anything else. And now I'm going to give it the origin. Now, the origin at this point, I'm just using with the storage account itself, but I could have set that to a specific directory if that's what I wanted. And now I'm just going to go through the process of creating that endpoint. And so Azure right now is going to be setting up an endpoint connected to this storage account, and once this has been provisioned, I can go through and adjust settings to say things to have specific caching rules, maybe allow or disallow things in certain geolocations. I can also use compression, and I can optimize for different types of content. So now this has been created, I'm going to click on it, and now I can go through my options. And right now I don't have any custom domains to show, but if I can click on my host name. I don't have anything in this right now, but that would just take me to where things are. And I can go to custom domains, like I said, if I wanted to have a custom domain going to this storage facility, I could. The origin type in this case, it is a storage account, but I could also use a web app or a cloud service or something custom. And if I, like I said, if I wanted to have a path to specifically serve content from that area, maybe a /videos directory or /images, I could use that too. And when it comes to compression, automatically it's going to compress all of our text files. And when we come to caching rules, I could either ignore query strings, could bypass caching, or cache every unique URL. And when I go into geofiltering, here I could basically say if I wanted to allow or disallow by country codes. And so this can be useful for GDPR purposes if you have concerns about that. And so that's an option too. If you can't let people from certain places access things, you can do that. And we have a way you can optimize. Right now, this particular CDN is going to be optimized for web delivery. If I wanted to create custom rules, I could do that too. And if I wanted to actually export this template so I could reuse this later on, this is where I could just export my ARM template. And so that's basically just the process of creating a CDN connected to a storage account. And like I said, you know, this is a really good way of optimizing how you're serving different content to different parts of the world, and also limiting not just the bandwidth that you're paying for, but also how many concurrent connections you're having to support as well. So that's an option too. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is security. And there are a couple of different options when it comes to security. And actually, we have an entire session on security, which is going to be taking place later this afternoon, and that will go into more of these details. But when you're thinking about how to secure your network, you want to look at things like network security groups, virtual appliances, routing tables, and then border gateway protocol routes. And so when we first think about at base level, how do we want to secure our networks? We think about filtering traffic. And so this is where network security groups come into place. And when you create an Azure network, a network security group is created by default, but you can also add additional security groups, and they can be nested within one another. And so I could set, in this example, for instance, I have one virtual machine. Both of them are on the same subnet, but one virtual machine has one set of rules, and then there's a broader set of rules that affect both virtual machines. And so I can set who has access to what ports have access, and so forth. And so this is a really good way to basically be able to control traffic into and out of your network, but also between resources on your network. And now when we talk about network virtual appliances, this is going to be a special virtual machine that is running software that's going to basically perform a specific function. So maybe it's a firewall, maybe it is a load balancer, maybe you're having something that you have a custom appliance that you have running on-prem, and you want to bring those same features to your Azure setup as well. And so that's what you can do with the network virtual appliances. And we have them from both first-party and third-party offerings. And so you can just go to the Azure Marketplace and pick those appliances that we have available. You can also bring your own if you have licenses for things. So there are options if you have very custom setups regarding security on your own on-prem network, and you want to connect that and replicate that with Azure. And when we talk about other ways of securing networks, we think about routing traffic. And so the routing table has various destinations, and each destination is going to have one or more routes, and it's going to have 0, 1, or more pointers to the next hop that are associated with that route. And each pointer is going to refer to the next hop. And each client will register that routing table, and it's basically going to create a list of the next places it's going to go. And that way, if something is going amiss and is maybe going in the wrong way, you can see that the rules don't allow that and put a stop to it. So having routes, you can have pointers to only the next hop list that are associated with what your client can do, which makes it a little bit easier to kind of secure and control what's happening with your traffic. And then when we think about border gateway protocol routes, or BGP routes, this is the standard protocol that's going to be used on the internet to exchange reachability information. and between 2 or more networks. And when we use it in the context of Azure, what it lets you do is basically turn your VPN gateways and your on-prem VPN devices to peer them or become neighbors. And when they become peers, they actually exchange routing information, and so they learn from one another. And so in this specific scenario, we have a situation where I have my on-prem location, I have a site-to-site VPN, just a normal VPN gateway with the BGP route set up that I'm connecting to one of my Azure regions, and it's then going to have its own BGP connection to another region. It's actually then peered and is going to get that routing information from that first BGP connection, and it will create another BGP connection to kind of create a redundant mesh with the other regions that I have services set up on. And finally, I can have another VPN gateway set up to my other on-prem location, and everything, all of the reachability information has been shared across all of my different components. And if you want to know more about securing not just your network, but in Azure in general, like I'd said before, we do have this session. It's going to be in this location at 1 o'clock today, Azure Security Fundamentals, and it's a really good session. And now we've talked a little bit about security. Let's talk about some of the services that we can have that are designed to keep your services online and help you manage traffic. And so when we think about the concepts of resiliency, that's basically the ability of your system to recover from failure and continuing to function. And the big idea here with resiliency is that it's not about avoiding failure, but it's about responding to failures in a way that can avoid excessive downtime or data loss. And when we think about things like high availability, that's the ability of a service to be online for a significant period of time, and pull through a lot of issues. And then disaster recovery is the ability to recover from some rare or major incident. And so you can think about disaster recovery is what starts when high availability ends. And when we want to think about systems that can give you both high availability and resiliency, that's when we get to the load balancer. And so we have a couple of different options within Azure. We have our public load balancers and our internal load balancers. And the idea here with the load balancers is basically going to help you scale your applications and deliver content more evenly to everyone who's accessing things. And so the public load balancer is basically going to be mapping to a public IP address and a port number to the private IP address and the port number of what VM you might be serving your services from. And in this case, what you're doing is you're basically just going to be replicating VMs on the back end. And the load balancer is going to, by default, evenly distribute traffic to those virtual machines. And it can automatically reconfigure itself. So if you add more VMs, if you're expecting a lot of traffic, if you're expecting, or you need to ensure that your services stay up, you can add more resources. But if one of those falls down, the load balancer knows and can reconfigure how it's distributing traffic that way. And all the outbound ports, are including your public, your virtual network, can be translated to front-end IP addresses too. And as I said, the default distribution model is to evenly distribute things, but you can change that if that's what you need to do. And then the internal load balancer basically works the same way, but the idea is that it's only directing traffic and resources that are within your virtual network or that are using a VPN to access your infrastructure. And so this can also be working cross-premise between your on-prem and what might be happening in Azure. And you can also think about using this for maybe line of business apps. Maybe you have internal applications that a lot of people are accessing, and you need to make sure that those resources are available to everyone across your company. And internal load balancer is what you would use here. And it's a little bit difficult to see, but there is this image on the left side of the slide that shows how you can use these two things together. And so in this case, what we would have is I'm just a regular web user. I'm hitting, standard port 80. I'm just hitting the website. And first, a public load balancer is going to send me to the various public-facing virtual machines. And I don't know which one it is. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm getting to my destination. But then there's an internal load balancer, which is going to connect me to a SQL database that is actually being hosted internally and is private and is not publicly accessible. So if I'm running a command within the app that needs to access one of those resources, it's going to use the internal load balancer to give me access to those resources. So you can use the different types together. And one of the other options that we have when it comes to load balancers, in addition to just the standard, is the Azure Application Gateway. And this is now in version 2. And this is a web traffic load balancer that lets you manage traffic to your web applications. And what's really great about this is that it's scalable, so it can auto-scale and add more or fewer resources depending on what your needs are and what your traffic situation is. It automatically includes a web application firewall and firewall rules. It includes SSL offloading, which is great because a lot of times SSH and SSL traffic can slow down SSL can slow down networks, and so it's going to offload that so that you don't have to worry about that slowing down your operations. And it's also integrated with other Azure services too. And so this is a good way to think about, okay, if I'm doing a lot of web things and I need to have a load balancer solution, you should be looking at the application gateway because that's really solid for that. One of the other options that we have when it comes to thinking about how you can continue to have resiliency and reliability are something called availability zones. Now, these are not available in all areas, but basically in certain Azure regions, we have what's called availability zones. And these are going to be fault-isolated locations that are within a specific Azure region. And basically, it's almost like a backup data center. So they have redundant power and networking and cooling. And so if something massive happens at in your region at one data center, there's a backup availability zone to step in and kind of fill in the gaps. And then we offer a 99.99 SLA on virtual machines using availability zones. And so this is another option too if you just need to make sure that if you're really concerned about keeping things online and moving. Not every service supports availability zones, and like I said, they're not available in every region, but it is a good option, and the teams are working really hard on optimizing how these things work together so that you have as little, I guess, latency as possible if you're using availability zones. Now, one of the other options would be managing traffic and serving things across various Azure regions. So the standard load balancer is great because it can just kind of send it to your virtual machines, but that's you can have multiple virtual machines set up to support your traffic and your network activity. But in some cases, you have the situation where you might have people located in different parts of the world, and you might have servers in different parts of the world, and you want to be able to manage where they are being directed. And so this is where the Traffic Manager comes in handy. And this is DNS-based, and it's going to basically let you direct clients to a preferred endpoint to reduce latency. And so, like I said, the load balancer is distributing traffic within the same region, whereas this is going to be able to go across multiple regions. And this is working at the DNS level, so it can work with basically kind of in any sort of, it can work with a bunch of different protocols, and that's what it's using. It's using its DNS information to figure out where it's going to be delivering and putting things, sending traffic. And like standard load balancers, there's automatic failover. So if your endpoint in one region goes down, it can be configured automatically. It will set up and say, okay, if this one is not available, we will send the traffic to the next closest region that is working. And you can make this really complex. You can have a lot of various kind of deployments and specific rules that are set up for these things. And so Traffic Manager is a really good way if you have a global business. In our example company, Tailwind Traders, we are an international company now. It's a new thing within 2019. We've expanded to a bunch of other markets, and so we use these types of solutions to make sure that our customers in Australia are not having to ping our servers in the central US, which could take a lot of time. Now, we do have another option that launched, it officially launched in April of this year, and that is called front door. And what this is basically an HTTP load balancer that is designed for traffic management. And so that's the big difference between front door and the traffic manager, is that traffic manager takes place at the DNS level, whereas front door is going to be taking place just for HTTP traffic, so for web traffic. And similar to the application gateway, it does things like offering, SSL offloading, and it can also, you can accelerate your applications. It has, it's global load balancing with instant failover. There are endpoints all over the world that are easy to set up, and there's a built-in application firewall and a distributed denial of service protections built in, and you can kind of have a centralized view of where all of your traffic is going. And so the big question that we get from a lot of people are, which one should I use? Should I be using Traffic Manager or should I be using front door? And the answer here really kind of depends on what type of traffic you're dealing with. In most cases, if you're just primarily dealing with web traffic, if that's what most of your activity is going to be, especially for your end users, then you want to use front door because that's really been designed and optimized from that. And like I said, you get those extra features like the firewall and the SSL offloading, and it's really fantastic for that. But if you are needing to use things that are coming in from TCP or UDP, maybe you have some things where people are accessing, maybe you have a file server set up, or maybe you have some internal traffic things that you're doing. That's when you would want to look at the traffic manager because it's DNS based. It's not attached to any specific traffic type. They are both solid, and you can actually use them together. And so this scenario actually kind of shows off what that would look like. And so in this instance, we have our website where maybe I have my www, my main URL, that's going to be using the front door solution because that's just my plain HTTP traffic. But I also have a file server at files. In this case, it's Contosa, but we could also say Tailwind Traders. And in that case, that's going to be using the traffic manager. But with both of these, we have identically set up systems that are redundant, but we could even send them to one place or another. And they're both set up to go where I need to go and to route traffic however I need to route it. So you can actually use these together depending on what your needs are. But we're really encouraging people, if what you're doing is based with the web, then you should be looking at front door because that's really good. And as I said, it formally launched in April, and they've already been adding really good updates to it. So it's a really good option if you're wanting to figure out how you want to optimize what's going on and where you're sending your users, especially if you have even globally distributed resources. All right, we're actually finishing a little bit early, but I wanted to point out that we do have, you can get more resources available at Microsoft Learn, and Microsoft Learn launched last year at Ignite, and we've made a lot of updates, and we actually have a whole collection that I've set up for the various networking things that we've talked about, and you can go through the process of creating a virtual network, or adding a CDN to your storage account, or doing some playing around with load balancers within the tutorials themselves. Docs.microsoft.com also has great up-to-date resources for everything that we're doing within the networking category. And I did want to point out that we do have a great certification available for Azure Fundamentals, AZ900, and so everything that we've been doing in the learning path, both yesterday and continuing through today and tomorrow, within this Fundamentals learning path, are going to be covering kind of the basics of what you'll be getting to know within Azure Fundamentals. And if you want to actually take the fundamentals exam, or you want to take any other exam here at Ignite, we actually have a free exam offer that's going on in Ignite. This is usually the only time of year we have this available, so you can either take the exam here while you're here and go ahead and get certified, or you can take it once you get home at a training facility. You have 6 months to do it. So this is a really great offer if you're interested in getting certified, whether it's in Azure Fundamentals or in something else. I highly recommend taking advantage of that offer. And Azure Fundamentals is a great thing to get certified in as well. And everything we're doing within this learning path, basically, you're going to have enough of kind of an idea of what's on that test. And as I said before, this is where all the session resources are. So if you want to get this slide deck, if you want, there's some links that are here as well. This is where you can go, and you can go and find the other event resources as well. And that does it for me. I will be in the hub later on if anyone has any questions, or you can come up to me after this presentation. But thank you for working through some of the technical challenges I have. Apologize for that. And thank you all very much.